I was like, we actually ended up being here for like a really long time. And I was like,
was it worth it though?
Yeah. Was it worth it?
Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of Journey of an African Lady, where we discuss everything fashion, business, and lifestyle. Y'all probably know me from our other video where we were discussing things no one tells you about moving to America. So yeah, today I'm gonna be here and we are going to be talking about...
We're gonna be talking about if moving to America is actually worth it. A lot of people wonder if, like leaving their native country, coming here, is it really worth it? Is it really as hyped up as everyone makes it seem? And we are here to answer that today. So let's get right into the video.
I'm sure you guys are aware that we have been here for a year now and we have had a lot to adapt to, as was discussed in our two-part series with me and Tekowa.
Where we basically talked about things that no one really tells you about when moving to America, which by the way you guys can check out at the end of this video. We'll also leave a link down below, so make sure you check that out. And just like she said, yeah, there is, we've been here for quite some time, and I'm sure if you've also migrated here, you have because you want to further your studies, you have a spouse that is American, therefore you are here, or you are here to work. In that where you are living now, there are not that many Americans with the skill in your field, and therefore the American government has sourced people from your country, and you've been one of them and have had to come and live here with your family for a couple of years while you're working. And so when moving here, it really does depend with your circumstances as an individual or as a family, if you're migrating as a family, as to whether you'd feel moving here was worth it or not. What I mean by this is, say you move here and you have good qualifications, you have a good skill, you would definitely feel that moving here was worth it, just because you'll be able to work, and working means, of course, having those good skills means, of course, getting higher pay, which means you can easily pay off bills, like for example the health insurance, which is it's one of those major bills. You can pay that off easily, and you can provide for your family, and so you would feel like, yeah, moving here was definitely worth it. However, if you are on the other side where you moved here as an individual or as a family with not that much money, not really like a skill or qualifications, then that means you'd have to probably work in a lower paying job. And so as a starter who just moves to a new place, that can be a lot, considering the bills that come with living here. It can be a lot, and so you could actually wonder, was it really worth it moving here? So you can kind of feel like maybe it wasn't, maybe life back home was better. So yeah, that's what really you have to take into consideration when you're thinking about whether moving here is worth it or not.
And I do know of a couple of people who found it a real challenge, especially when they first moved here, because the bills are crazy to pay, and if you come here with really no family and friends, it can be really rough, especially in the beginning stages.
Yeah, and I've known of people who have taken years to actually settle down, and that's just because they moved here with not that much money. Obviously they had to start life a little harder than others. And then you have those people who within a month they're settled in, ready to start their new life and everything. So it just really varies with your circumstance as a person or as a family. For us personally, it took us roughly 6 months to actually be okay, we're fine, we're okay. It actually took us 6 months, because then after that we started traveling before the pandemic happened. We actually could now afford to go on a little vacation as a family, travel. So yeah, it really does vary. I know some, like I said, some people take a shorter time, some people are somewhere in between us, and then you have those that take years. So that's something to take into consideration. It's also important to remember that people have a very different background story. So there are some people who may not have been able to afford the basic necessities in their home country, and therefore decide to relocate here, and are definitely obviously finding life way better than in their home country. And so for such people, moving here no doubt was worth it for them, for their families. They are also probably able to provide for their families back home if they came and left their families behind. And so for such people, for sure it was worth it coming here. For others, maybe life where they were was way better than here, and so when they come here, it's like, is it worth it? No. And in that case, honestly, that's where I say the nice thing about being a human is you really have free will. If you feel like moving here to the States is not the best for yourself, you're free to relocate to any other place. There's so many places around the world where you can move to and find that suitable place. The US is not for everyone. Some people may find living in Europe better, some people may find living in India better, so it just depends with the person, their backstory, and what their goals are really, as an individual. Also, in my opinion, it's easier to buy a car and a house over here than in other places, just because you have a more stable income coming in, and you're sure of pay. Some people pay every week, some people every 2 weeks, some people every month. You kind of choose, there's some jobs that allow you to choose when you'd like to be paid, and so that means you always have a stable source of income coming in every single time, which means it's easier to get a car, it's easier to save up for a house, as opposed to other countries where it may be harder for people, especially for single people and young people as well. So you find a lot of young people who are serious with their life actually have made that investment to purchase a car for themselves, or some even go as far as purchasing a house, which is pretty good.
Yeah. If you have children, it's also so relieving to know that education here is free, and that really you don't have to pay for your kids to go to school and get a really nice educational system.
Yeah, that is actually very true, because I can give an example for us personally. Where we come from, our parents were spending a lot of money on our education.
Yeah.
A lot, and so moving here was such a relief, to them and to even us, because you're not worried every 3 months you have every term, every 3 months you have to pay a certain amount of money. Where we're from, every 3 months, which is every term, that's the duration of each school term, your parents would, I know for my parents, they were coughing around, and I say coughing because this was some real money we're talking about. Every 3 months they were coughing for my education in high school. They were coughing approximately $2,500 every 3 months, and there are 3 school terms in a year. So yeah, that was a lot of money at the end of the year. And then for my sister, it was even more, even though she was not even in high school. They were coughing for her $3,500 every 3 months,
which in Africa is a lot of cash.
That is a lot of cash, honestly, just generally. That's a lot of money. And so when we moved here, it was so relieving to know that you can still get the same quality education at nothing, literally nothing. We didn't pay for anything. We didn't pay for lunch. We didn't pay for anything. Back where we're from, we had that was only tuition fees. The 2,000, for me, the 2,500 was only tuition fees. We're not talking about lunch. which was like $150. On top of that, we're not talking about paying for extracurricular activities if you wanted to do those.
Oh yeah, that
we're
is
not
true.
talking
Yeah.
about first aid. If like say something happens to you at school, you obviously need like some attention. We're not talking about like school books. Like what I loved about here was the fact that even stationery books, like if you cannot afford it, the school can provide them for you at free, like no charge at all. That was impressive. So if you have kids and you are wondering if you relocating to the States would be the right thing to do, in my opinion, if you have children, it's definitely worth it, because you don't have to worry about the education. If you're smart enough, and this is why I always emphasize, be smart, right? We always emphasize this, because if you're smart enough, my people, you can get a good scholarship in a good college, and they can fund for your college education. And I would advise a lot of people to take advantage of that, just because it's amazing. Like I am in a program right now, and I'm just so grateful, because you don't have to worry about nothing. You're just worrying about passing your classes, and if you're focused and you have your head right, that's not even a big problem. And so it's just amazing, and I think it's worth it. Like when it comes to education, for sure, it's definitely worth it. Like there's no question about that.
Yeah,
like,
none at all.
Yeah,
it's definitely worth it.
It's definitely worth it when it comes to education. Now, lastly, we're gonna talk about jobs. Now, like I said, with the backstory and everything, in your native country, you may not have been able to find a good job. But when you move here, finding a job is like,
it's like a piece of cake, sort of.
To an extent. Like it depends. It really depends. Like what we're saying is based on our experience. Everyone's experience is different, but I'd say it's definitely easier than in other countries. I know it's definitely easier than where we come from to get a job here. For sure. I only stayed for like 3 months, and then I got a job. Like I was hired to work somewhere. So after I came here. So I mean, that's fair. It's fair, really. And the good thing about here also is that, like, especially where we live, every single place is hiring for the most part. And so even if you're fired from your job or you quit, I'm not saying you should. That doesn't mean you should start slacking at your work. No. But I'm just saying, like, if that happens, you're not even that stressed. You're not really stressed out that much, because you can just go and apply for another job. Like, there's so many places hiring around. And if worst comes to worst, you can always seek unemployment aid, which I think is that's like really nice. The fact that over here you have that option where you can be funded, your family can be funded for like 6 months. I think that's amazing. It really is. And so when it comes to that, then you'd say, okay, I think moving here is definitely worth it.
So thank you guys for watching. This brings us to the end of this video. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your family and friends, and we'll see you guys in our next video.
Bye-bye.